All right, let's get started. We have quite a bit to finish up today. You can finish up that quiz. Hopefully, it is something that those are some examples of questions you might see. What we'll do is on Thursday, either Thursday or next Tuesday, we'll have an in-class quiz where you actually fill out. I'll actually give you questions to fill out a little answer sheet too, so you kind of have a primer before the exam. Okay, so we'll have that before the exam, which is a week from Thursday. Right? We get into it now. We get into it. All right. So today we're actually going to start. This is chapter 29. We're going to finish up reproduction and pregnancy and reproduction today, and then we're going to start blood on Thursday. Okay. So we talked about the reproductive system. We talked about separately male and female reproductive systems, right? And their jobs separately are to produce gametes, eventually to bring those gametes together to produce a zygote. All right, so what you have here is we're going to talk about pregnancy. All right, so pregnancy is the time, technically, the time from fertilization until the infant is born. Okay, from fertilization until birth. So, what do you know? What is the normal time frame for pregnancy in humans? Everyone says 9 months. Is that right? Well, technically it's 40 weeks.
Well, isn't it 38 if you go by like?
Considered to be full term is like 36 weeks, right? But normally it's 40 weeks. Why is it why are we talking about 36, 38, 40 weeks? 9 months. So we don't know exactly when you get pregnant. When is conception likely to happen? When do females first suspect that they're pregnant? When they miss their first missed period, right? The first missed menstruation. That actually happens how long after likely? It could be over at least a couple weeks, right? You say ovulation happens around day 14. There's a certain window, right, where fertilization can occur, maybe right around ovulation, maybe like 2 days prior to a couple days after. So you're talking at least 2 weeks, or right about 2 weeks before your first missed period. That's when conception is likely to happen. So we add that, right? So now you have that first part, your first missed period, and then we go from that point forward is like 9.5 months. Okay? So the timing is a little off, right? It's a little subjective. Let's put it that way. It's subjective depending upon when that happens. All right? Pregnancy, time for fertilization until the infant is born. Conceptus is a couple terms we use differently. Conceptus, zygote, right? We can use those kind of interchangeably. Conceptus is a developing offspring. Zygote is the first cell of a new organism where egg and sperm come together. An embryo is technically considered to be the period of time from fertilization until about week 8, and then from that point in time we talk about it as a fetus, from about week 8 until birth. Okay? And so our normal gestation period, technically, from the date of the last period, all right, which could be up to 2 weeks after conception until birth, is approximately 280 days, which is 9.5, about 9 months and a week, right? So when we talk about 9 months, it's really 9 months after the first missed period. Okay? So here's our little diagram showing you development from fertilization, right, where we have a zygote, to the 1 week conceptus. Big changes happen in 3 weeks. So by the time a female actually recognizes that she's pregnant, things in the embryo have changed considerably, right? We've gone from a ball of cells, we'll just see in this in a little bit, from 1 cell to 2 to 4 to 8, 16, right? So then you turn into this ball of cells, and then all of a sudden those cells move, and now it has fluid around it, it has the developed placenta, it now, heartbeat starts, right? It's about 3 millimeters in size, okay? That's about the earliest you can get to see an ultrasound of your developing infant, okay? I'll tell you the story of my daughter. I'm sending this around. This is just a signature sheet for the Biology 101 or 211 policies. Tell you the story about my oldest daughter. My wife and I we're going to start talking and trying to figure out if we wanted to have a child at some point. When I was in graduate school, she didn't have a full-time job, or she did, and she was really liking it. And we, it was always going to be like, yeah, we'll talk about it later, or whatever. And we always felt like every time we talked about it, like, well, when's the perfect time? When you're out of graduate school, okay, but then I have a postdoc, and then I have to do research, and I have to get tenure, and I have to do this, and then we have to move, and then we have to do this. So we're kind of like always prognosticating about when's the perfect time. We don't know. So I just said, let's just see what happens. Okay, fine. So we're like married 1.5 years, right, in graduate school, and so she's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go off birth control, and we'll see what happens. Okay, fine. Literally the month after going off birth control, she has a OBGYN appointment. She goes into the OBGYN appointment, and she goes into the OBGYN appointment basically pregnant. So she's like, well, I was supposed to, we're in there, we're talking to the doctor, She's like, well, you want to see your baby? Like, oh, wait, what? I haven't really wrapped my head around it yet. But she's like, yeah, come on. So she comes in, or whatever, internal ultrasound. I know we have plenty of diagnostic imaging people here, so this is right up your alley. But she's like, you see this? And there's this little dark spot with like a little dot of white in the middle. She's like, you see that little grain of rice? I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's your baby. It was like 3.4 millimeters. So I have the earliest picture you can actually have of your child. So that's why it's pretty cool. And then we're friends with the doctor, and we go every week and everything else, And then you get all the other ones. I have the wall of stuff at home. So that's kind of the story from this. All right. So, but you get to see kind of about 3.4 millimeters. I don't think he didn't even have a heartbeat yet at that point. At least not one that was detected. About 5 weeks, develop a heartbeat. 8 weeks, everything is pretty much in place. And then from that point forward, it's just growth and organ development. Okay, so let's talk about fertilization. Let's talk about the obstacles that I want you to understand. The obstacles that egg and sperm have to overcome in order to create you. Okay, in order to create another organism. First off, timing. Okay, timing. The oocyte is only viable for a period of time. So we know ovulation happens right around day 14. After ovulation, it's picked up into the oviduct or the fallopian tube, and there's a period of time where that oocyte is actually viable. That period of time is roughly a day. Okay, so about 24 hours of viable time where the sperm have to be there in order for fertilization to occur. Okay? Sperm, on the other hand, are viable for about 1 to 2 days. So 48 hours, sperm have to go, through the female reproductive tract and find the egg that's only going to be viable for a little less than a day. Okay? So, timing-wise, intercourse must occur roughly 2 days before and up to a day after ovulation. So there's about a 3-day window where that has to occur, and ovulation kind of has to fit in the middle of that. So what those people who are trying to have children, right, and they're monitoring changes in body temperature, LH surge, and they're trying to find out based upon that when ovulation's happening, they're trying to figure out when is the best time for this to occur.
So if you have an extremely, like say you always have a 28-day cycle,
Yep.
then you can exactly like pinpoint where those days are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a varying cycle, it could be any day.
Yep. Well,
Not any
it could
day,
be.
but like
Well, so if your cycle varies, and which most women do, right? So anywhere from 28 to 31 days, right, in between, depends. You're trying to find, by using another method that separates it from time only, right? So I'm taking body temperature, right? Body temperature is with it, because your body temperature actually increases with the LH spike. So a lot of times females will monitor their body temperature at like multiple times during the day. When you get a slight spike in body temperature, that is coincident with an LH spike, which is when ovulations happen. So you're trying to find, if it would be easy to say all females had a clockwork 28-day cycle, day 14, boom, between day 12 and day 15, that's when intercourse has to happen, right? Okay, easy, but it's not always that simple, okay? So that's timing-wise. Now the journey of the sperm to get there is another problem, okay? How do sperm get to and travel through the female reproductive tract? What do you think? How do they get there? What's their main mode of transportation? Swimming. Do you think it's swimming? What do you think?
It's contractions.
So we all kind of like it's the general conception of sperm are going to swim and find the egg, right? That is the general conception. Sperm swimming, right? It would take them days to travel the expanse of the female reproductive tract if it was just based upon their motility alone. Okay? Is that efficient in order to maximize this timing? Is that something we wanted? Is that dependable? No. So to aid in that, the components of the ejaculate of male semen actually stimulate the female reproductive tract to contract. Okay? The contractions of the female reproductive tract actually help push the sperm along. Okay, so that's another aspect. But they have to reach the uterine tube along this period of time in order for fertilization to be possible. Now they find the oocyte. Yay! Now what? Well, the oocyte was ovulated, right? When it was ovulated, what did it look like? Here's my oocyte with a little, right? And then I have a layer of something around it, and then I have a layer of stuff around that. What is that? Zach?
Question?
Yeah, go for it.
How do sperm pass through the cervix?
So good question. They do pass through the cervix, okay? They actually swim through the cervix. The cervical mucus, okay, gets thin and dissipates along the time of ovulation, okay? So that's part of the female reproductive tract actually allows that to happen, okay? Good question. So here's our oocyte. What's around the outside of the oocyte? Okay, that's the level of cells. Corona radiata. What else? There's one other thing. Starts with a Z. It's actually analogous to the eggshell. Right? It's called the zona pellucida. Okay? So now, here our sperm gets to our oocyte. First, it has to actually burrow a path through the cell, the follicular cells that were ovulated with the oocyte. So it has to get through that. Then there's a reaction between the sperm and the zona pellucida that it actually breaks down the zona pellucida, and then the sperm enters the oocyte where fertilization actually happens. Okay? There's enzymes that are on the cap of the sperm, the acrosome cap, that actually dissolve through the corona radiata and the zona pellucida, and then allows that interaction to happen. Once that interaction happens, then what? How many sperm fertilize an egg? Did you not?
No.
How many sperm fertilize an egg?
1.
5? Not 5. 1. Right? We want 1. 23 chromosomes from mom, 23 chromosomes from dad. How do we ensure that it's just 1? Do we need to make sure it's just 1? Yes, absolutely imperative. If it's more than 1, female never knows that she's pregnant because that zygote dies. Okay? So, how does an egg ensure, or the sperm, egg and sperm together, ensure that one of these sperm fertilize the egg? So what ends up happening is there's this cool reaction that occurs. These receptors on the sperm interact with receptors on the zona pellucida and breaks it down. And once the sperm enters, once the sperm enters, there's this like electrical change that happens. Calcium, there's a wave of calcium that actually goes into the cell and gets rid of all of those sperm receptors on the surface. So now, once those receptors are gone, no other sperm can actually attach to and fertilize the egg. Now we have a zygote instead of an egg and sperm together. Yes, Alexa.
So, like, I know twins can come from 2 eggs, but
Mm-hmm.
can't it, like, isn't there instances where 2 sperm enters and then the egg splits?
Normally, you could have there are some very weird exceptions to the rule, okay? Where you could end up with things that happen, okay? There's like these what we call monozygotic or dizygotic identical twins, some weird stuff. There are some exceptions to the rule, okay? If you want to talk about identical twins, that is 1 sperm, 1 egg, and then after that, the zygote somehow separates out. That is a smaller percentage than fraternal twins, which are separate egg and sperm. But there are some, distinct exceptions that do occur, but those are very rare. Okay. So once fertilization occurs, the oocyte actually finishes meiosis, and then we get the formation of a zygote. Okay? The zygote is your first cell of the new individual. It is 1 cell. It is now diploid, result of your fusion of egg and sperm. Eventually, we have very quick, very rapid cell divisions that occur. So I'm okay with this, right? So I have now, what I have left is a 1-cell organism, that's nucleus. Okay? What ends up occurring very quickly is the zygote divides very quickly. It undergoes mitosis rapidly without actually getting any bigger in size. So I go from 1 cell to 2 cells to 4 cells to 8 very quickly. The zygote has not gotten any bigger, but it has gotten increased the number of cells. Okay? At this point, the zygote is in the oviduct and the fallopian tube and floating towards the uterus. Okay? That rapid series of mitotic divisions is what we call cleavage. Okay? It's very quick, happens right away. As soon as one stops, it starts again. Okay? So at about that point in time, this zygote is free floating. It floats down by action of the cilia of the fallopian tube, pushes it towards the uterus. All right. Eventually, it floats around for a few days in the uterus before it finds an actual spot to attach. All right. You end up at one point in time. This is now a ball of cells, what we call a morula. All right. This morula then expands. Water and fluid actually goes in to the ball of cells. And if I was to cut this open, now I end up with this kind of, right? And these are all cells. Okay? This is what we call the blastocyst. A blastocyst has this thing, this fluid-filled cavity called a blastocele. Okay? This part over here is what we call the inner cell mass. All right? And then all of this stuff over here is what we call the trophoblast. The inner cell mass is what will end up becoming the new individual, will become the embryo, will become the person. The trophoblast, these other cells out here around, you'll see in a second, actually becomes part of the placenta. Okay? And what do you think the fluid inside here represents? Ends up becoming amniotic fluid. All right? You'll see that in a little bit. So here are the stages. Zygote, 4 cells, morula, your ball of cells. Here's your blastocyst cavity or the blastocele. These cells right here, they're actually showing them in this picture, colored different than the ones along the outside. That's your inner cell mass. That will become individual, right? All of those cells in the inner cell mass have what we call totipotency. They can become any cell that you have. They become all of the cells that you have. Okay? This is where, from those cells with inner cell mass, that you actually get embryonic stem cells. Right? Those are stem cells. So the inner cell mass is where you actually get embryonic stem cells from. Okay? And at this point, this blastocyst implants, attaches to the endometrium, and now the female recognizes that she's pregnant. Time for a cough drop. Oh my God. Someday, I won't be sick. Someday. And I don't mean mentally, I mean physically. All hope is lost in that. Okay? So, you'll notice here in this picture, you're seeing the development of the follicle up to ovulation, right? And then the corpus luteum stays throughout the first parts of pregnancy before the placenta is created. So we have different stages, blastocyst, fetus, vocabulary-wise. Okay? So the embryo undergoes cleavage without growth. That's without growth in terms of size. And then we have the embryo, morula, and eventually the embryo will attach to the endometrium and cause pregnancy. Questions up to there? Don't worry about me, I just have to fix this now. We'll fix it later. So, the blastocyst is a ball-like circle of cells, about 100. This is what secretes human chorionic gonadotropin. And why is that? What is HCG and why is it important?
It helps the corpus make the hormones.
Okay. Wow. It helps maintain the uterine lining. How? It helps keep progesterone high by maintaining the corpus luteum, right? HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, is the maternal recognition of pregnancy signal. Okay? It is the signal that the uterus is telling mom, there's a baby here, we need to keep things going. Okay? So it induces the corpus luteum to continue to produce hormones. What hormone are we talking about here? What hormone must the corpus luteum continue to produce? Progesterone. Okay? And we talked about trophoblast in the inner cell mass. Okay? The other part of this, now we get into kind of developmental biology, is that the inner cell mass is still this kind of ball of cells. Right? And now that ball of cells, the cells start to move around. And now, when they move around, you got cells on the outside, you got cells that are on the inside, and you have cells that are in between the two. Okay? So their position is different, and because their position is different, they actually behave differently. So the cells on the outside are called ectoderm, and those cells will become part of your nervous system and your skin. Okay? The cells on the inside layer are endoderm, and that's most of your epithelial tissue, including the lining of your respiratory system, lining of your digestive tube, etc. And then everything in between. Everything in between is what we call the mesoderm, and that's like muscle, bones, some nerves, but not much. Okay, so 3 layers.
You said the endoderm was most of the epithelial tissue?
Endoderm is mostly internal epithelial tissue. Okay, so here's endoderm, mucosa, and the gland. So mucosa is your more epithelial tissue. The ectoderm can be also epithelial tissue because it's the epidermis of the skin and the nervous system, and the mesoderm ends up being everything else. Okay, so you'll see kind of, this is what it looks like. You have 3 layers of cells inside this inner cell mass. All of this is like the trophoblast. Those cells that are going to end up becoming part of the umbilical cord, chorionic villi, part of the membranes, right? The amniotic fluid. But this part right here ends up, these are the cells that will become the individual. And they're layered differently, outside versus inside. And because they're layered differently, they behave differently. Okay? Chorionic villi are projections of the blastocyst and become into parts of the placenta. Right? Your amnion is the fluid-filled sac that the embryo actually floats in and helps nourish. And we know what the umbilical cord is, right? What is it? All right, so it's connection. What goes between mom and embryo? Nutrients. How do the nutrients get there? Through the placenta. What is exchanged? Through what is the exchange happening? Blood. Okay? And this is an example of special circulation. Okay? We're going to learn in about a couple weeks that veins usually carry deoxygenated blood, and arteries usually carry oxygenated blood. Okay? In this case, it's the opposite. Okay? The umbilical vein is going to actually carry oxygenated blood away from mom towards the fetus. And the umbilical artery is going to carry deoxygenated blood, right, towards mom and away from the fetus. Okay? So when you're in lab and they actually see the placenta, right, model, make sure you know which the red one is the umbilical vein, and the blue one is the umbilical artery. This is what it looks like. So, chorionic villi, here's part of the umbilical vein, umbilical cord, right, and the attachment between the embryo and the placenta. Mom and baby's blood don't really mix. Okay, it's a common misconception. They don't really mix. There's a slight barrier between them, by the placenta. All right? That's not to say that things that are in mom's blood can and will and do get to the baby. Okay? Absolutely happens. But red blood cells don't run from mom and then end up in the fetus. Okay? So, the placenta forms a barrier between mom and the embryo. That is a selectively permeable barrier. Some things pass through, some things don't. Big things like blood cells don't pass through. Small things like drug metabolites, hormones, antibodies, they do pass through. Okay? The function of it is deliver nutrients and oxygen and also remove waste from the embryonic blood. Eventually, the placenta becomes an endocrine organ. After a couple weeks, the corpus luteum regresses, and the placenta is now established, and it starts to produce the hormones of progesterone and estrogen rather than the corpus luteum. Questions up to there? So we're going to about 2 months, about the 9th week. We're talking about the embryo, the fetus now. By the 9th week, all the organ systems in the fetus are established. From here on out, growth and organ specialization. What do we know about what's happening in mom at this time? How does mom feel 2 months after? How many of you have older sisters or nieces and nephews that have had children? Sisters, siblings have had children, yes? How does mom feel about 2 months? Haley? Terrible. My wife lived on Pop-Tarts in the morning. So like, it's the only thing she could keep down. She had Pop-Tarts and Moe's burritos. No joke. So my first oldest daughter was Pop-Tarts and Moe's burritos. All right. My second one was she couldn't eat anything in the morning. Anything, and then banana peppers on pizza. I don't know. They're both bad. So, what's happening in mom's body at that first couple of months? There's a whole host of changes that are ongoing. Okay, you end up. That's we establish morning sickness, right? There's changes in hormones that are ongoing, and the embryo's talking to mom's body's talking back, and they're not on the same page, right? End up with a whole host of problems. But after about that second, when you get into the second trimester, about the 3rd month, things start to be good. This is what we call the honeymoon phase of pregnancy, right? For about 3 months, from about month 3.5 to about month 7. Everyone's like, oh, that's when you have your baby showers, whatever, everything's good, right? Glow of pregnancy, feel great, okay. And then after about month 7, wife or mother is done with having the baby, she's uncomfortable in every which way. Men, take care of your future significant others when that happens. Do whatever they want. You go get them brownies in the middle of the night. I don't care. You just say yes. Okay? And if you can't, you better come back with something good. Okay? So at that point, it's just uncomfortable. All right? So about the 9th week of the 2nd trimester, baby's established, happy, and it's just growing and changing in appearance. All right? So this is about the 9th week, and this is about the end of full-term pregnancy. Okay? We talked about pregnancy. All right? What happens in the mom during pregnancy? I'll tell you this. Pregnancy is really, really hard on a female body. It's awesome. It's awesome to see that what happens, and it's like in awe. I like in awe when it first happened. I'm like, it's so cool. She's like, I hate you. It's so cool to see to know that there's a living being inside of you that you're responsible for, and I have nothing to do with it. And it's just so cool, and I'm just like in awe of what a female's body can do. Okay? That being said, it is really hard. Okay? And so it is. Lots of changes happen. Okay? The uterus expands. Uterus goes from about the size of a pear to about the size of a big watermelon. All right? It expands. All right? You end up, your center of gravity changes. Literally, your center of gravity changes. So if you were to stand up and kind of do the pregnant belly walk, right? Think about it. You got 20 pounds, roughly 30 pounds of baby and water and tissue that you're holding in front of you all the time. So your center of gravity changes. You have an accentuated posture. Right, you end up a lumbar curvature, lordosis. Obviously, there's relaxation of the pelvic ligaments that allow the uterus to sit into the pelvis. Right, the pubic symphysis separates because the baby actually has to pass through the pelvis itself. Okay, and that's with the production of relaxin. So before conception, about the size of a fist. Right, by about the time of full term, the uterus actually extends all the way up to the xiphoid process. Okay? With the expansion of the uterus, what happens to the other organs? They get compressed. Okay? You wonder what do pregnant women have to do all the time? Pee. Okay? 2 reasons. You gotta pee all the time, like all the time. Okay? 2 reasons. 1, they are filtering the blood and the nutrients for another individual inside it. Okay? So all of those nutrients and oxygen exchange and carbon dioxide has to go through mom, and her kidneys are filtering everything for the fetus. Okay? Number 1. So more fluid, more action of the kidney. Number 2 is, where's the bladder at this point in time? Couldn't tell me. Is the size of the bladder or the how much the bladder can expand? Is it bigger in A or in D? A, right? There's this fist-sized uterus there that there's a finite space there. Well, the bladder can expand a little bit more, right? In D, all of that pressure of that fluid of the amniotic sac and the fetus is pushing on the bladder and prevents it from expanding. So a near-term 8-month pregnant woman, right? She can't, the bladder just doesn't expand enough. So it's smaller area, she has to go to the bathroom more. Okay? So, other physiological changes. The gastrointestinal, yes, yeah.
Once the baby's born, does uterus like instantly go back to like hair size?
Instantly, no. Instantly, no. But yes, it will retract back to normal size. Okay? But it takes a while.
Like months?
Yes. All right, so the gastrointestinal, we mentioned morning sickness. It's common due to the changes in hormones, typically progesterone and estrogen. Heartburn is common. Why is heartburn common here? What about the stomach? It's being pushed up, right? This uterus is expanding superiorly, whereas the stomach sits on top of that. It's actually being compressed. All right, so heartburn is common. Constipation is common, right? Again, based upon compression of the organs within the abdominal pelvic cavity. Okay, I talked about the urinary system. Kidneys work overtime, and the uterus compresses the bladder. It actually can cause stress incontinence. What's incontinence? You can't control or hold your urine. Okay. Some pregnant women, well, some women who have had children, they will say that your bladder is never the same afterwards. I don't know, but that is the routine saying. Alexa.
So when you like have a baby and then get pregnant like super fast right after,
Yep.
like the uterus doesn't have time to shrink back down. So does it get even larger?
No. It's not like it's already this big, so now I'm going to get bigger. If it doesn't shrink down, return to normal size prior to the next pregnancy, that it's like muscle tissue is already stretched. Okay, so it will fill the space, but it doesn't necessarily need to expand it more. Yes, you have your twins within a calendar year type thing. It happens. My sister has them, right? So my niece and nephew. My niece was born October of one year, and my nephew was born in November of the next year. So within 13 months, my sister had 2 children.
Wait, so then how do twins fit?
How do twins fit? What do you think?
It just expands even more?
There's a little bit more expansion, a little less fluid between the two, right? It depends on the female's anatomy too. Like someone who's a female who's like looks like she's carrying twins may not be. And I always say looks like she's carrying twins. Maybe she has more weight, or more water weight, whatever it might be. That's not to say like people who have very little weight gain can and do carry twins.
So how much larger does the uterus get with twins?
It doesn't necessarily have to get much larger. Right? So you end up with this space, right? And we have one fetus in there. Maybe it moves around a lot. It's got plenty of space. Or you could fit 2 in there, and they move around a little bit less. Or they occupy their own little niche. Okay. Other changes: the respiratory system. The nasal mucosa becomes congested and swollen. Funny story. My wife did not know she was pregnant with our second child. Okay? How she just decided she was we're walking through Providence Place Mall, right? And she goes, "Oh, the perfume in here is like super strong today." She's like, "Oh, it's so bad." Okay, fine. Like, that's okay. I hadn't thought nothing of it. Later at night, she's like, "I'm pregnant." Well, what? Wait. She's like, "No, I know. I am. I think I am." She's like, "I was super sensitive to the smells in the mall today. I'm like, okay, whatever. Took a pregnancy test, and sure enough, like it was like so because the respiratory system actually becomes more sensitive. You get the nasal mucosa becomes congested, swollen, right? And so you actually respond to smells quite more readily. Vital capacity and respiratory rate. Vital capacity, we'll study this in a couple months, is the amount of air that you can actually move through your lungs. All right, in any big one breath in and one breath out. Okay? Why is that amount of air that can go through your lungs reduced? Because of the compression of organs, right? All those organs compress against the diaphragm, which sits this U-shaped muscle that flattens, right? When you inspire, when you breathe in, and if there's something there forcing against it, it can't flatten, and you can't move as much air in, right? So the amount of air that goes in and out reduces, but you actually increase how often you breathe, okay? This leads to dyspnea, which is difficulty breathing, and that occurs in the later stages of pregnancy. Cardiovascular system. There's a literal another human being inside of a female, right? That the outer female is actually supporting, right? So the blood is the transient, is the transport mechanism for all of those nutrients, oxygen, waste, right? Carbon dioxide that has to go from mom to the fetus. So your blood volume actually increases, right? More blood, right? Your blood pressure increases. Your pulse increases, okay? Because you are moving everything around, the heart, the pump that's moving all of that stuff around, has to move it around faster. If it moves it around faster, it has to pump faster. That's what we're talking about. So heart rate goes up. Varicose veins are common, especially in the legs, right? So it's hard to move that blood past against gravity. Some of the valves within veins fail, and you end up with pooling of venous blood causing varicose veins. Okay? Questions on pregnancy and what happens in mom? What's the end point of pregnancy? Zach, sorry, question.
So between the zygote and the fetus formation, is there something special that happens with the particular cell shape or size?
I wouldn't say cell shape or size. Okay? The cells don't get necessarily bigger. They don't change in shape. Okay? But there is something that definitely happens between fetus, or say embryo and fetus.
Differentiation.
The cells move, right? They move to different areas, and now when they move to different areas, now there's different layers. And now they're in the cellular position is much different. And now those cells actually, because of the position, behave differently. Okay? And then from there, they differentiate. Then the cell size will change based upon what they'll end up becoming. Right? Whether they're muscle cells or nerve cells or skin cells or whatever. What's the end point of pregnancy? Pain. No. Well, yes, but no. Right? It's with childbirth. Okay? And so there's two stages of childbirth, right? We call labor is one. Right? So labor is the series of events that expel the infant from the uterus. All right? Eventually what happens is that you have this stretched uterus, and inside the uterus is a fetus that's getting too big to be inside this particular confined area, right? And that fetus starts to drop into the birth canal, and it puts pressure on the cervix, okay? Pressure on the cervix is the stimulus to start contractions. Okay? But what happens when you put pressure on the cervix, starts the uterus to contract, what happens to the pressure on the cervix? It actually increases, right? I'm stuck, the fetus is stuck inside this confined space in a certain size, which is already too small, and I'm pressing on the cervix, which now causes the walls of that room to come in on you and push you further down. There's only one way out, okay? So it pushes more pressure on. More pressure, more stimulus to cause more contraction. And then more pressure, more contraction. You see how the cycle goes,
When
right?
you have early, like an early birth, and like start going into labor to like weeks in advance,
Yep.
even if the child isn't big enough, what?
So there's medical interventions that can happen where they can actually delay your labor, right? So you may hear someone who's kind of a little bit stressful, or they put on bed rest first. So first bed rest, it helps relieve the pressure on the cervix. You're kind of laying down rather than, then they can medically actually stop and prevent the contractions by some injections.
But what about people like with actual premature births?
Yep. So a lot of times it happens where there's some type of stimulus and starts the release of the hormone, and if it's full term, they'll let them go. And there are other times where the condition of the fetus dictate it has to happen, right? So there's so many variables of why that happens that you could medically say we're going to prevent it from birth from happening, or we need it to happen at that certain time. Okay. So this normal child labor, right, operates by a positive feedback mechanism. Okay? Pressure on the cervix is your stimulus to release a hormone from the brain. Release a hormone from the posterior pituitary called oxytocin. Oxytocin works on the myometrium of the uterus, the muscle wall, for contraction. The uterus contracts, and that makes the stimulus more strong, right? More pressure on the cervix, more oxytocin, more contractions. What do we know about contractions in labor? What happens to them how are they when they start as opposed to when they finish? Sam? So the time in between contractions gets shorter. All right? What else? Those contractions actually get stronger. Right? So they get closer together and they get stronger. That's your positive feedback. Right? Think about every time a contraction goes by, that's going to stimulate more hormone release, and it's going to make the next contraction be a little harder or a little sooner. And then it happens again, and it happens again, and it happens again, until eventually what? What's the end point? Baby comes out. Is there any more pressure on the cervix once the baby's out? No. Okay? So a positive feedback mechanism has a definitive end point. In this case, the infant is expelled. We have what's called false labor contractions, called Braxton Hicks contractions. Those are small ones, kind of like false alarms.
If, once the baby's born, how do they get them to birth the placenta to them? There's no more contractions.
There are some contractions, there are weak contractions afterwards, and the placenta actually, in a way, detaches from the uterine wall.
But your cervix doesn't immediately go back down.
No.
So the placenta is not can you feel it?
Much less than you did with what you just went through. Okay, so
It just makes me so upset.
So childbirth, birthing a child, is much more intense than the placenta that follows. Can you feel it? Yes, but it pales in comparison in intensity to.
And it happens when? When do you?
Minutes to minutes afterwards. Most of the time, mom's already with baby or whatever, and
You don't
doesn't really
acknowledge
even,
it.
yeah. Okay, so how does initiation of labor start? Estrogen levels rise, your uterine contractions begin, and that causes release of oxytocin. Combination of these hormones then lead to and produce contractions. Those contractions cause pressure on the cervix. That then reinforces the pressure on the cervix, right? And you have a positive feedback mechanism. The cervix is a muscle barrier between the uterus and the vagina. That cervix actually has to dilate. So the opening of the cervix dilates from 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters. Okay, so 10 centimeters, say 2.5 inches, it's about that right there. That's fully dilated cervix, and that's what a baby will pass through. Okay? And it not only dilates, but it what's called effaces. It thins. So a thick muscle thins into very thinner muscle, which allows the muscle to stretch, be pliable, and allow it to go through. Okay, so here's another positive feedback mechanism of true labor. All right, you can see what happens with that. All right, so we talked about dilation, our stages of labor, dilation of the cervix. Full dilation is 10 centimeters. All right, the cervix softens and effaces. Eventually, the amnion ruptures. Okay, the membranes rupture, and the fluid that the baby's in comes through. That's what we're breaking the water. Oh, my water broke. Why is that important? Why do you have to go to the hospital? Because now there's less fluid that the fetus is floating in, and it's now going to start to cause problems with oxygen exchange in the body. Okay. Dilation is the longest stage. 6 to 12 hours could be longer. All right. It all just kind of the way it goes. Over time, when you're pregnant, you go visit the OBGYN at normal intervals. As you get closer to term, those intervals get shorter and shorter. So you may be going once a week, twice a week, right? Well, go get checked to see how you're doing, how the baby is, where the baby is. We want baby to be head down, face down. Okay. Sometimes that's not. Breech birth, feet first, butt first. That's different than head down, face down.
You can give birth breached.
They will do everything they can not to do that. Okay?
But if it's already too far gone, you can't really do like a C-section.
Mm-hmm. Well, first they will actually manually try to turn the baby. I don't know if I could explain manually any more than that. Manually turn the fetus. Yeah. They will try to manually turn the fetus. Okay. Then we get, so we want head down, face down. Breech birth is feet first. I'll kind of manually push them in, turn them around best they can. Okay? And you can see it passes through the pelvis and out of the vagina. Okay? Expulsion. Right? The infant passes through the cervix and the vagina can last as long as 2 hours, but typically it's 50 minutes with the first birth and less after with subsequent births. Okay? In today's society nowadays, they will not let moms go very long with this. All right? My mother will love to tell you the story of the fact that she went in on Friday, okay, and I wasn't born until Sunday afternoon with a big fat cone head because of whatever reason. But mom loves to tell that story. That will not happen in today's healthcare society. Like you go in, if you're not ready, go home, come back. And if you're kind of in stage, they'll get it going along, and if not, then they'll do a cesarean section. All right, but most of the time, kind of get things going. Normal delivery, head first in the vertex position, right? Brief presentation is buttocks first, and that's a whole different story. But we'll try not to do that either. All right, so expulsion, head down, face down. All right, and then afterwards you have the placenta stage, usually within 15 minutes of birth of the infant, so right after. And then your afterbirth is the placenta and the phenomembranes. Fetus comes out, dad gets all the glory, yay, you know, honey, you did so good, cuts the umbilical cord, runs over, takes care of the kid, and mom's dealing with that. That's not the way it works. But usually it comes out, they put baby right on mom's skin before she's even cleaned up, etc. Okay? All placental fragments should be removed. The more that the fragments of the placenta are removed, it reduces postpartum bleeding, it encourages postpartum recovery, etc. Okay? So you can actually see the placenta detaches and then is passed through for the umbilical cord. Now you can actually store umbilical cord blood, which is important for potential stem cells later on. From the question on pregnancy. Listen, it's scary, but I will tell you from experience, not experience, but experience. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I have actually not gotten to witness an actual vaginal birth. Both my kids were born delivered by cesarean section. Okay? However, that in and of itself is amazing. Amazing. No. They cut down here. So at that, it's actually below the P line, right? They cut there because the uterus has expanded and pushed all that back anyway. So you just cut a couple times through the uterus, and then you're in the membrane and out of
You're in. Like I wasn't like that
Thank you. If you haven't signed this, make sure you sign the sheet before you leave. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Just a little bit.
Madison, make sure you sign.
There's only 5 guys.
Where's Sarah? Sarah's not here. She's got the flu.
It's your signature. Thank you. You can do it.
Are we starting blood?
You need to. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you gotta come out.
Yeah, I know.